what are some biological, physical benefits of cold exposure then?
That's a great question. So there are some things you'll immediately notice. So one of the best biological benefits that I have seen in all the years I've been training, one of the primary ones, the immediate benefit of the inflammation resolution. And it's a very natural anti-inflammation agent. And what happens is, again, your hypothalamus picks up the cold, and it starts to send you this chemical called norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is one of the most powerful endogenous anti-inflammatory agents that we can create. It
Yeah.
is it is actually, what's funny is that it's also the same neurochemical that we experience when we experience anxiety. But when we're experiencing it in a cold exposure, when we're experiencing, of course, we also produce this when we exercise too. So this is not just a anxiety thing. It's basically there to help us to become more alert and to help us to have energy to survive in our given environment. But the beauty behind this is it's also very strong anti-inflammatory. It has a very strong anti-inflammation effect. And the real beauty behind this is that it's not something you develop a tolerance to. So one of the questions that I'll
Yeah.
get a lot of times, right, is, hey, this is great. I feel great, but am I going to eventually have to do like a half hour in here or something just to get the same effect? And that's a fair question, because if you've ever tried any over-the-counter medicines or prescription medicines for pain, it's very common, right? Okay, so I start with 200 milligrams, and before you know it, I'm up to 800, and then I'm up to
Need more.
1,000,
Yeah.
and it's not even doing what it used to do, and so the beauty is, and I explain this in the book, there's been some research on this, and it shows that whether it's your first exposure or your 100th exposure, the norepinephrine response is the same,
Ah.
which is incredible. That's not how it
Yeah.
works with most things, right? And so, especially people who have chronic pain, when we're talking about arthritis, when we're talking about injuries that, sadly enough, not every injury heals, right? So there's some
Right.
things we're having to figure out strategies how to deal with these things.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic way to reduce your inflammation on a very regular basis without causing addiction, without causing, liver problems, all these things that come
Yeah.
with taking these over the counters. Now, that's not to say you can't also take an over the
Of
counter
course.
or
Of
something
course.
else, but this is a fantastic way that you can just
Mm.
have a lifelong and a very regular, consistent dose of the strongest anti-inflammatory that we endogenously produce. So that one
Mm.
right there, I really love that one because I've seen it. I've used it myself. I've experienced it. It's one that time and time again, science continues to show us this is a real thing. It's not just, there's a lot of flash in the pans when it comes
Yeah.
to cold exposure therapy. But this one's a very, very well tested one, a very true one. And that's not to say you'll be, completely, pain free. And it's like, wow, I just take these cold showers. I've never experienced inflammation. It's not that either. But it is to say that you can dramatically reduce your aches and pains by getting into a solid cold training practice.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the benefits. Another that I have experienced, and I think a lot of, if you talk to people that are pretty regular in the cold training space, you will hear people talk about an improvement in their immune function. Now, this
Mm.
is also where we have a lot of pseudoscience, a lot of flash in the pans, a lot of like, cold shower a day keeps the doctor away,
Yeah.
right?
You'll never have
And
a cold in your life if you do cold shower.
exactly,
And I was
never sick
disappointed to find
again.
out not true, because I got a cold a
Oh,
couple years into it.
I
And I'm like,
was
that sucks. I want a refund on cold exposure.
I know. I remember, I'll never forget the first time I caught a cold after getting into it. I'd gone a whole year, no colds or flus. And that was a long time for me.
Yeah.
Normally, my usual schedule is maybe once or twice a year I'm catching a cold, right? That year I had zero colds, flus, fevers, etc. I was just feeling amazing. And of course, as it would have it, I remember I was having coffee with my parents, and they say, "Oh, this cold stuff, you're going to give yourself a cold." I said, "No, no, mortal." I have discovered the secret, right? And I was all just really, the ego was flexing. And just pretty much the very next week, I caught a cold
Oh
and
no.
I was just heartbroken.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I looked at my wife. I'm like, it's all a lie. It's
Yeah.
there's nothing good here. And she's like, listen, gave me the list of all these positives, and she said, if nothing else, it's making you in a better mood. You're
Yeah.
you're having all these other positive things, and it's overall it's good for you. But it's not like you're just not going to be a human anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, yeah, I think you're right. So I stuck with it. And but when it comes to the immune system boosting benefits, there are some of them there. But I do want something I explain in the book more in
Yeah.
depth, but I do want to just kind of cover it. It is that according to the research that we have on colds and flus, on viruses, things of that
Mhm.
nature, we do know that the viral replication is temperature dependent. And what that
Mm.
means is there actually is a connection between being in the cold and catching a cold. So for the
Mm.
longest time, and this is another one of the we're going to myth bust a little bit. We'll be myth busters today on your
Let's do
podcast
it.
because what happened is when I first got into this, we were and I think there's a large contingent of the cold training world that's very raw cold training, and anytime human beings get
Mhm.
raw anything, we go overboard, right? We just
Mhm.
jump the shark, so to speak. And so you'll have the conversations. Well, being cold is not going to make you catch a cold. That in itself is true, right? It's as far as
Mhm.
we understand it now, and I'm sure later on we'll understand it better. But as far as we understand it now, it is viruses, there's bacteria, there are things
Mhm.
that basically they come into our system. The innate immune system causes us to have a response. It's a generalized response that's just trying to kill anything that doesn't belong. This is part of our nervous
Mhm.
system.
Yeah.
And then over time, we develop antibodies and we fight back that viral infection or the bacterial infection. As
Mhm.
far as we understand it, that's just the general gist of how that works, right? Usually it takes about 7 to 14 days for those antibodies to be completely produced. And then,
Fight
okay,
it
great.
off. Yeah.
Exactly. And I just want to say that in itself is a healthy immune system, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of us will look at, okay, I caught a cold. That must be a deficient immune system. No,
Mm.
that is a myth that should be busted because so many people, oh, I caught a cold. My immune system must be bad. That's your immune system actually doing what it's designed to do. And it's not a perfect system. It's just the one we have. It would be great if you didn't have any symptoms and somehow it
Right.
just like boom, it was
Right.
I'd be the first in line for an upgrade there. But our
Yeah.
innate immune response is there first of all because it says there's something here that doesn't belong here. We haven't zeroed in on exactly how to counteract it, but we're just going to start putting a lot more white blood cells. We're going to start flushing out
Mm.
some systems. We're going to change our energy production. We're going to put a lot of energy in fighting whatever it is, right? That's inside. And you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel sluggish. You're going to feel gunk.
Right.
We're going to stop you up. That is normal. And that is actually a healthy immune system doing what a healthy immune system does.
Yeah.
I don't like it,
I don't either.
but it is what it is.
Hello there, and thank you so much for stopping by this channel. I hope you find this content useful, and if you do, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It will really help me to reach to more people and keep this content going. Here we are journeying together, and let's see where this takes us.